السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. وصلى وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So where did everybody go? Just before I forget, next week inshallah is the 1st, is that right? First. So we have no class next week inshallah. Right? Because of the ethnic convention. So we have no class week inshallah next week. We're going to commence the following after that, and then I think it's only, is it 4 weeks? 4 weeks afterwards. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4 until April. So our last class inshallah will be on April 29th. And then afterwards I think we have a break, and then it's Ramadan, and then inshallah we might pick up after Ramadan. Right, so it's next following. So I'm going to try inshallah to finish all this within the next 4 weeks. Try. Alright, so we're going to start today inshallah with as we usually start, with the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And today is the Al-Malik. Right? Al-Malik means...
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. The weekend school is conducting tests for the kids. So please, if you finished your salah, we ask you politely to vacate the masjid. We are using the masjid for the test. We thank you so much. May Allah bless you. We have to finish the test and the kids have to go. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much.
So inshallah we are going to take the name of the Al-Malik. What does Al-Malik mean? The king. Like King Arthur? So what does the king mean? So, okay, what does the king encompass? Come on guys, when somebody says a king, what does that indicate?
He's a ruler of the...
Ruler, good. What else? Come on. What does the king have?
Dominion.
Dominion, good, excellent. What else?
Throne.
What? A throne. Okay, but that's not the... Yes, the king has a throne. What else?
Power.
Power, good. Ownership. Is that right? Is that right? Okay. So when we talk about king, by the way, we're not referring to the regular kings. Obviously, of course, this Malik was in the Quran. And there's different variations of them. There's Malik, there's Malik, there's Malik. But the one we're going to talk about today is the Malik. And it's from the Quran. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك. And then following by the Qudus. So هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك. So الملك over here is one of the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we talk about its meaning, when it's related to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course we have to think of a befitting meaning to the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-Malik. So which means that he has, so in the Arabic it says هو التام والملك المالك لجميع الأشياء. So which means that he has complete and absolute ownership. Right? تام والملك لجميع الأشياء. So complete and absolute ownership for everything. Okay? Is that clear to everybody? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala owns everything. Has complete ownership, which means that there is no associates. Okay, you guys are all asleep today. Okay. So, yeah, Shabab, do you guys need jumping jacks? Push-ups, anything? Coffee? Here, I have coffee. Anybody wants coffee? Wait. It's only half full, never mind. No coffee for you. Alright, get off the phones, unless you're writing something. Malik means, it's okay. So this is important, guys, because it really does have an indication of as Muslims and how it affects us when we believe. So when we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, part of the definition when it has to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as befitting of Allah, when it says He's the king, it means complete and absolute ownership over everything. That's part of it. So complete and absolute ownership means what? Is there somebody with him?
No.
There's somebody with him. Nobody has a partnership with him, okay? There's no shares, no dividing profits, no nothing. It is just complete and absolute ownership. So in Arabic they say, because he has complete ownership, he does whatever he wants in whatever way he wants with his ownership, or whatever belongs to him. Is that right? Because he's the only one, they also add to it بِلَا مُمَانَعَ وَلَا مُدَافَعَ. بِلَا مُمَانَعَ, which means وَلَا مُدَافَعَ, which means without any opposition or without any objection or resistance. Can anybody object to to what Allah decrees with His, whatever it belongs to Him? Is there any resistance? Or opposition? I'm talking like real valid opposition. We're talking about your own opinions. Okay? It doesn't matter what your opinion is, but we're talking about real reality. Okay? Like, no, there is no true opposition, no true objection or resistance because everything belongs to Him. He owns everything. And they also add to it, النَّافِذُ أَمْرُهُ فِي مُلْكِهِ, which means that whatever He desired will be executed. So He has complete execution. Everything He orders is executed, whatever He belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. المستغني عن كل مخلوق, which means that He is not in need of any creation. All this is encompassed in the word al-Malik. So you see how many things is encompassed in Malik? Yes? Because He has complete ownership, it means that there is no resistance, no objection. His commands are completely executed. He is not in need of anybody. Why? Because He already owns everything. Yes?
Yes.
Good? Alright, so this is also one of the expressions of iman. Now, how does that, believing in that name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how does it affect us as Muslims? When we think of the word al-Malik, how does it affect us?
Trust.
Trust, okay, where does that come from?
He owns everything and He's gonna make it happen for us.
Good, because He owns everything, we trust that there's nobody but Him that can control anything. So you have that trust. So in this terms, okay, how should I put this? Okay, so I'm going to take one at a time. So when you know that He's the true owner, which means that He gives whatever He wills to whomever He wills. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
So which means that each one of us, whatever the belonging that we have, whether the same or they're different, who gave it to us? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you believe in that, how could you ever have hasad towards anybody? How could you ever envy anybody? Or how could you ever be displeased with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is that understood?
Yes.
Because if you look at it, like, who gave me this? It's true, right? There are means, yes, that I got to, but in the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Nobody should be upset about my beautiful mug and be envious of my beautiful mug. By the way, keeps things warm for 12 hours, cold for 24 if you're interested. Just marketing over here. But you're not necessarily, you should, I'm just using this example. Nobody should have any enviness of anything that belongs to anybody else because it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's own belonging and He distributes it as ever He wills. So that's one aspect of believing in the ownership of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But also if you believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Malik and everything that is given to Him, it's not just that you don't have envy, but you're also content with His decree. That level of contentment is important. Because quite often some people are discontent with their lives, for example. Or discontent with their wealth, or discontent with their spouses, or discontent with their children. But in the end, who gave them all these things? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how can you be discontent with anything that Allah would give you? Now, by the way, that discontent is not just with that. Right? It's even with the least of things. So sometimes, for example, you hear this objection a lot, right? Man, it's too cold today. When is this winter going to end? Or it's too hot in the summer. Why is it so hot? Well, what are you objecting about? This all belongs to Allah. Right? His order is executed. So He's the one that decides how things are. So really there isn't, if you understand this, then there should be nothing but content, no objection, right? No discontent. And so this has to do with one of these aspects. Now also believing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only Malik, He owns everything. Doesn't that also necessitate that you only worship Him?
Yes.
Or that you only ask Him?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. Grateful to Him too.
That's true. I'm taking it one time at a time, but you're right. I was getting to that one next. No, you're right. It's not here. I just didn't want to branch off too quickly. But it's true. You only ask Him. Whatever you need or want or desire really is in His hand. And so you should only need to ask Him. But this also gives you a sense of not being in need to others. You only feel the sense in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this amazingly frees you from a lot of pressures. Really does. You feel no pressure that somebody really owns your bread and butter, I guess. Okay, so if you're an employee, you don't really feel that your employer is the one that controls your livelihood, because it's not his. Whoever owns this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so you only ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are facilitators. There are means to that rizq. There are means to all these other things. So when you have that, when you believe that, you only desire to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it also indicates or necessitates that you only obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You put nothing before Allah's commands. See how different levels this affects us as we truly believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the king, is the Malik. Okay? Which also means, by the way, you never can attain anything except by obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which is kind of funny, right? Generally, we try to attain whatever we desire by unlawful means. Is that right? And then we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give us barakah in it. So, for example, we want a... What do we want? What do you guys want? What do you want? Coffee. Here.
Guidance.
So it's like worldly things.
Worldly. We'll think about worldly things. Just worldly. What do you desire? Ferrari. Good. Excellent. And this world of the hereafter. But if you don't get it, like, okay, if you want a Ferrari, so how would you attain it? Stealing. By having money, or stealing. Exactly. Thank you. This is exactly what we're not supposed to be doing. This is exactly why I have this halakha. No, listen. Obviously, you need money, right? So, if you attain this money, you have one of two options, either by lawful means or unlawful means. Okay. So, if you got by lawful means, alhamdulillah, you can get your Ferrari. And inshallah, there's barakah in it. But if you are unable to get it through the lawful means, you should also be content, because this is something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not desire to give it to you in the first place. Is that right? Now your other option is, what's your other option? Unlawful. Haram, right? You steal it, you cheat, whatever unlawful means, interest. You attain this money unlawfully. And you still got your Ferrari. Good. How long is it going to last? Allah A'lam, right? How much blessings are going to be in it?
None.
You never know, right? You might have trials because of it. It's kind of funny. This is a true story, by the way. A person was so focused about owning a building. He just wanted to be an owner of a building. Right? He wanted a building. So he can be the owner of a building and rent it out to make money. And every single day he would make dua to Allah, oh Allah, give me a building. Please Allah, give me a building. And so he got involved in a way of attaining money lawfully to get a piece of land, alhamdulillah. But to be able to build that building and raise it, he had to get involved in some shady transactions. Alhamdulillah, he got his building. And he sold the apartments in there, and he's making money. However, because of a few things, like cutting corners, whatever the case is, illegal things happened, and he ended up going to jail because of the building. It's still there, but it's useless, right? He's not benefiting from it. It is useless, so there's no barakah. You might want that car, but it can lead to accidents. You can spend the money to do something else. People can be envious of you and give you make dua against you. So many things can go wrong. So many things. Okay? But there's no barakah in it. You're going to get it, but there's no barakah in it. But anyway, so it means that everything you should be able wanting to gain should be done in lawful means. And it goes, by the way, from everything, whether it's food, clothing, even spouses. Everybody wants, hopefully, is desiring a righteous spouse, a husband or a wife. Now, the only way you're going to attain this, a good spouse, is by obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not going to get the... Now, I'm talking about obeying, by the way, not just prayers, but I'm talking about the relationship with the opposite genders even. You cannot attain that spouse by dating them first, because it's not going to benefit later on. Usually. The majority of marriages don't succeed. Very few marriages seldomly succeed because of those interactions. But I'm just giving you an example. This is a risk of something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you. All right, now the other thing that it benefits or necessitates is to realize that if everything that we own is given us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means that really doesn't belong to us, right? Which means that we're going to be questioned about how we use it. Doesn't matter. How do I use my phone, right? How do I use my mug? Do I hit people with it or drink with it, right? It just doesn't matter. Right? Whatever you're going to do, whatever belongs to you. Even your health, how do you spend it? Your youth, how do you spend it? Your eyes, your ears, all these are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He owns all these things. He gives it to you as a what? Loan. This is a loan that's going to get back. But you're going to be asked about this loan. Which also means that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took back His loan, we should not really be too ungrateful about it. Okay. Now, knowing that also, it also necessitates that you have humbleness and humility. Because all this nice big house, the Ferrari that you got, okay, the lovely spouses and children that you have, all this should not give you pride because it's not from you, it's from Allah, because He's controller of everything. He's the owner of everything. So all these things that kind of affect us of how really we would believe in, or how we would look, right, at or how it affects our belief and behavior as Muslims, and just from understanding the word al-Malik, that He has complete ownership. So we really ask Him. And there's no partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so it necessitates that we worship only Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that we are content with whatever He decrees, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that we don't have any sort of enviness, or use anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us in the wrong way or manner. And I think that's kind of almost summarizes everything. I'm trying to summarize things quickly. Okay? Any questions about that? Any questions? Okay. Now there's a lot of things that have to do with kind of imaniyat, which are kind of nice. Which when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly shows His kinship on the Day of Judgment, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just kind of, everybody's dead, and only Him is left, and He says, where are the kings? لمن الملك اليوم, who has the complete ownership today? لمن الملك اليوم لله الواحد القهار, right? To the one who is the qahar, which means He has the overpowering strength over everything. Hold on. Yes.
This is into things. The verse أليس الله بكاف عبده, and the hadith يا بني إذا علمك كلمات إذا سألت فاسأل الله وإذا استعنت فاستعن بالله واعلم أن الأمة لو اجتمعت على أن ينفعوك بشيء لن ينفعوك إلا بشيء قد كتبه الله لك وإذا اجتمعت على أن يضروك بشيء فلن يضروك إلا بشيء قد كتبه الله عليك. جفت الأقلام رفعت الأقلام جفت الصحف. So this is yes, it's true. So it has to do also with the kinship of Allah. Now, by the way, if you notice, a lot of some of the names we're going to take, sometimes they have overlap with other things. But also, it's not that, I'm talking about the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has overlap with other qualities, because it necessitates those qualities. Now, but actually, it's kind of interesting. It is our benefit that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the king, by the way.
Yes.
Because if Allah is the king, always there will be fairness. Adl, right? Justice will be always established. On the Day of Judgment, we know that there will be mercy in the hereafter. And in this world, there is mercy. And so, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the owner, it's our benefit that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the sovereign king, the ruler of all things, the owner of all things, the one who has complete of all things. It is for our benefit, because of all these other qualities that are associated with it. Alright, inshallah, we're going to switch gears, and now we're going to go back to the, talking about the unseen, and we're still talking about the angels. Where did we stop last time? Do you guys remember? Dispute, we talked about that. Is that dispute? Oh yeah, some of the characteristics. Okay, what else?
The last thing you talked about is well organized.
Okay, good. Some of the characteristics that were organized, that's true, they stand in lines. That's the last thing, right? And so we're moving to the next thing, which is what? Their acts of worship. Is that right? Yes? Right. Who's sitting at the back? Do the angels worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. What's your proof?
They stand in line.
The what?
They stand in line.
They stand in line, from last time, that's true. Alright, one thing about the nature of angels we have to understand is it's in their nature, their innate quality is that they do not disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Y'all agree? We talked about that before. They do not disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're created to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So which means that they really don't have the ability to disobey to some extent. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. They do not لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم. They do not disobey him in whatever he orders subhanahu wa ta'ala. ويفعلون ما يؤمرون, which means that they perform what they are ordered to. So them leaving disobedience is something that is of an innate character, let's say innate or a natural disposition for them. You know how we naturally breathe? Did you think about breathing? No, it just comes naturally. The same thing to the angels. It comes natural. This obedience just comes natural. For humans, is this natural?
No.
It requires work until it becomes a habit. Until it becomes a habit. And it's kind of interesting. This is why some scholars were debating: are angels liable or not? Do you guys know what I mean by liable? هل الملائكة مكلفين? They have taklif or not? Do you know? Does everyone know what taklif means? It means that you are liable, which means if you do something, you're going to be questioned about it. So are they mukallafin?
No.
They don't have free will.
They don't have free will.
All they do is obey Allah's law.
Okay.
How are they going to be asked questions about obeying the one who's telling them to do?
And
Worship or obedience.
again, لا يعصون الله أمرا.
Mm-hmm.
They
Okay.
don't disobey Allah. So
Yes. So when Allah orders them something.
yeah.
They just do it.
Okay.
But they also have intellect, right? You said like,
But they also have intellect. Okay.
They don't have a will.
Now
They don't have a will.
they don't have a will.
they have
So they have to execute his command. So if they have a flag and they're
See, he's getting at something because they actually do actions. Is that right?
yeah.
Yes.
Do actions.
Yes. So if they short.
I think wait, okay. So by the way, the mixture you're talking about is kind of interesting because you're mixing a bit of a judicial Jew-Christian thought of will, that only humans have will. Is that right?
Jinns do.
Sorry?
Jinns also have will.
Jinns have will. Free will, complete free will.
Free will. If we have,
But does that mean that angels are not liable? There's no taklif.
how can they be liable when they're obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He's telling them.
They have jobs
They have jobs to execute. Okay.
Yeah.
They do it. Wasn't Iblis an
But they're not going to be
angel?
asked for them.
Good question. Wasn't at least an angel? We talked about this before, right?
He wasn't.
No.
No.
That's in the Christian belief. They have fallen angels. But Iblis was not an angel. In Surah Al-Kahf, you guys read all the time. وَكَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَفَسَقَ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِ. وَكَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ, which means this is direct background, that he is from the jinn. However, Iblis was a jinn that was very pious and worshiped Allah, and he raised in ranks to the point that he was worshipping with the angels. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the order to the angels, it included everybody in presence of the angels, so it included Iblis. However, Iblis did not listen, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran had mentioned, he said, وَكَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَفَسَقَ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِ. So he is from the jinn, the other creation. This is why he said, خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. And we know angels are created from light, right? Not fire. So this is another indication of why he's not an angel. Okay, but anyway, back to the topic. We can actually, okay, I'm asking about this because there is a difference between scholars. But the majority says that the angels are liable, but their liability is different than the human liability. تكليف الملائكة خلاف تكليف الإنسان. So it's just different. So similar to how we are ordered, they are also ordered. Is that clear? Similar to how they are prohibited from doing certain things, we are also prohibited from doing certain things. So for example, they are ordered to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? يَخَافُونَ رَبَّهُم مِّن فَوْقِهِمْ وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. Just to indicate why this liability. The verse in the Quran that I use is يَخَافُونَ رَبَّهُم مِّن فَوْقِهِمْ, that they fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by the way, it's kind of, khawf is kind of interesting word. I'm just going to elaborate a little bit. يَخَافُونَ رَبَّهُم مِّن فَوْقِهِمْ وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. They fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's above them, and they perform what they are ordered. Now, khawf over here, fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, by the way, in Arabic there is khawf and then there is khashya. We're going to talk about that, okay? But khawf over here, that they fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, isn't that an act of worship? Fear of Allah, isn't that an act of worship?
Yes.
Yes? But it's also a feeling. Can you control feeling? Not really. To some extent, maybe, if you think about it, right? For example, like, when you think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about how He's going to judge you, you can start feeling the fear. So you can bring that about. Now, these angels worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by this fear. Now, this type of worship indicates that actually they are liable. This is an order that they should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they do fear Him. And so this is a form of taklif. Is that clear to everybody? Right? No, okay, so because fear is a taklif, it's a liability. Like you're liable to, this is a job that you have to perform, a form of worship. And the fact that they're doing it is a taklif. So their taklif is a bit different than humans to some extent. By the way, it's one of the highest level of servitude is fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the highest level of servitude is feeling, because it's more emotional. Now the fact that they, yes, other than execute the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the angels themselves, they do worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, different forms of worship. Do you guys know that, right?
Yes.
Yes? So for example, we mentioned that they form lines in their prayers before that, right? In fact, that they're so almost like, when they form these lines of worship, they form them like to a certain extent that they actually call نحن الصافون. Right? They say the one says they call themselves as we are the ones that are the ones standing in line. Safun, the ones who stand in lines. So they are described in every form of aspect of worship. Actually, they perform the act they're in the servitude of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala obviously knows what they're doing. They fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They do not go beyond His commands. They do not defy His commands subhanahu wa ta'ala. But not just even that. They don't even, in the Arabic sounds when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تُقَدِّمُوا بَيْنَ يَدَيِ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Right? Do not put forth anything before the commands of Allah and the commands of His Messenger. The angels themselves don't put anything before the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which means that they never even suggest something to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can they suggest anything to Allah?
No.
Oh, Allah, might be a good idea to do this. Sounds weird, doesn't it? But you know what? Don't we as humans do that sometimes?
Yes.
Think about it. Don't we do that? We do that, right? No, listen. I'm going to prove that to you. For example, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't do this, it is bad for you. Okay. And then we say, okay, I'm going to indulge in it a little bit, I'm going to control myself. I can control myself. So you're suggesting to Allah, wait, for me, I can control this, don't worry about it. Is that understood? So this is an example. When you start, I'll give you an example. It's very obvious in the ahkam, judicial system. When you suggest another maybe opinion of a ruling other than Allah's, you're suggesting something else. Is that right? You're putting something before the ruling of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before the commands of Allah. So sometimes as humans we do this. You thought it was silly that the angels suggest something. But we do it ourselves. So you have to be careful. I'm just pointing this out. But even the angels don't even suggest nor object to any of the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do the angels object to anything? Do they? They don't object to anything, is that right? Although I know somebody's going to say something sooner or later about this. Try to prove that they do object. Any contenders? No? Alright. Yeah.
Isn't that because of their knowledge and our ignorance?
Their knowledge of their knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or their complete iman,
Yes.
that Allah is wise, that Allah is all knowledgeable. Yes.
And the ignorance of the man who chooses to take the
We
part
talked
of
about
the
their knowledge
choice.
versus our knowledge, right? Did we talk about that? I think we did. Okay. But yes, because they have stronger iman of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they know all these things. But anyways, this is one part. Now, I'm going to give you examples of their forms of worship. Some of the things that they do. One of the things that they quite often worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with is tasbih. And this is in the verse of the Quran, الَّذِينَ يَحْمِلُونَ الْعَرْشَ وَمَنْ حَوْلَهُ يُسَبِّحُونَ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّهِمْ. Those who carry the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those who are around them, they يُسَبِّحُونَ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّهِمْ. They say Subhanallah wa bihamdi. Even another verse in the Quran, like, just a general verse, like, not just the carriers of the throne. And this is, I think, is Surah Shura. It says, وَالْمَلَائِكَةُ يُسَبِّحُونَ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّهِمْ. And so they actually worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by doing tasbih. And by the way, this tasbih is consistent, continuous. It's something that always they're doing. It's almost, subhanAllah, day and night. يُسَبِّحُونَ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ لَا يَفْتُرُونَ. سبحان الله لا يفترون. يفترون, which means they do not weaken. So it's continuous. They do subhanahu wa ta'ala. To the point that because of how much they do it, remember I mentioned the verse of the Quran, إِنَّا نَحْنُ وَإِنَّا نَحْنُ الصَّافُونَ وَإِنَّا لَنَحْنُ الْمُسَبِّحُونَ. We are the ones that stand in line, and we are the ones that are often doing tasbih. They're describing themselves. This is how often they're doing it. So this is type of the characteristics. So this is from the of worship they do. Now, one thing about tasbih, the reason they pick this form of worship as dhikr of tasbih is because it is the best form of dhikr. Can anybody argue with me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
La ilaha illallah is the best of all dhikr. Ala zikr la ilaha illallah.
Okay.
And the Quran is also the highest of the dhikr as well.
Okay.
Um,
But can I argue with that? I'm going to argue with a hadith. Can I argue? Okay. So this is a hadith narrated in Sahih Muslim. Okay. And it's by Abi Dharr radiallahu anhu. And the Prophet ﷺ was asked, which dhikr is better? أي الذكر أفضل? And so he said, ما اصطفى الله الملائكة وما اصطفى الله لملائكته أو لعباده سبحان الله وبحمده. Okay. So yes, all this is beautiful, of course. And you cannot, the best thing to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with is what is from Allah, which is the Quran, obviously speaking. But if you're going to pick something specific, as a dhikr specific, subhanallah bihamdi is one of the best forms. Of course, there's the best four, which is la ilaha illallah, alhamdulillah, Allahu akbar, subhanallah, you can add, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Those 5 things are the best of things. Now, among of them, some can argue la ilaha illallah is the best of them, or some argue some people can say tasbih. But just know that they are doing the best form of tasbih. Because the Prophet ﷺ mentioned this. Now what does subhanallah mean anyway? What does tasbih mean? Yes?
Can you please translate that hadith that you just spoke?
Oh, I didn't translate? I apologize. If I okay. Sorry. So the Prophet ﷺ was asked which is the best form of dhikr. The Prophet ﷺ answered the dhikr that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had picked for his angels or for his servants, and it's subhanallah wa bihamdi. Now what does subhanallah mean? Yes?
all praise is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is perfect.
That's hamd.
No, it's tasbih.
Alhamd.
Alhamd, it's like, it's a way of grateful, to be gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm
No,
going to
alhamd
explain
is
it in sabah.
Alhamd, where does that come from?
From thankful. Yeah. Hamada, from Hamadullah.
No, there's a difference between hamd and shukr.
Yeah, it's a higher level of shukr.
There's something that's called umum and khusus. There's generality and specificity in both of them. But then hamd, what does it mean hamd? Hamadtu shakhs.
Praise.
Praise, thank you. Good. So alhamd, it means praise. So when you say alhamdulillah, which means, what are you saying?
All praise to Allah.
All praises belong to
Allah.
Allah. Good. So what does tasbih mean?
Allah is perfect.
Thank you. You're saying that Allah is perfect. But tasbih essentially means, why are we saying it's perfect? Is because tasbih is a form of negation. You're negating all defects from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yes.
You're negating all forms of negative traits. So this is why it's an indication of perfection.
And it came from the root verb sabaha,
Sabah.
floating. So when we are making this tasbih, we are getting rid of the sins and we become lofty or elevate our status
As a reward.
as
Yes.
a reward and become to our real level as belong to the heaven.
It comes, yes, from sabah. So essentially that's why, because it's like the opposite of perfection. But anyway, but you're negating all the negative attributes. You're negating all form of negativity, all form of defects from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect. So this is what tasbih means. So pray, when you say alhamd, you're praising Him because of all the perfection that Allah has, because of all the beautiful traits. This is why it is praising. Okay? But anyway, so that's tasbih. Now the other form of worship that they do is what? We mentioned the salah, because we said that they line up in prostration. Now their form of worship is almost the same as ours. They stand and they prostrate and they do ruku'. Okay, so they bow, they prostrate and sujood. Even the Prophet ﷺ had mentioned, it was mentioned in the Hadith, the Prophet ﷺ was sitting with his companions and he asked them, do you not hear what I'm hearing? Okay. Do you not hear what I'm hearing? He said, we do not hear anything. So the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنِّي لَأَسْمَعُ أَطِيطَ السَّمَاءِ إِنِّي لَأَسْمَعُ أَطِيطَ السَّمَاءِ I hear the atit of the sama. Atit is the sound that is made if you put pressure on something. The creaky now sound, the creaking of the door when you put something like heavy on leather, it makes that creaking sound. Sorry, not chirping. Chirping is more of birds, but it's a sound because of a heavy weight or something of pressure, whatever the case is. Okay, so that's called atit. So he said, إني لأسمع أطيط السماء وما تلام أن طئت. It is not ما تلام, which means that it's not blameworthy, that it's not blamed for it, that it would do that. And so the Prophet said, ما في موضع شبر. And then another narration, 4 fingers. There isn't a space wide of the shibr or 4 fingers, إِلَّا وَعَلَيْهِ مَلَكٌ سَاجِدٌ أَوْ قَائِمٌ, except that there's an angel that is prostrating or standing. So they're always this type of form of behavior. Now they also perform Hajj. Okay, they also perform Hajj around the Kaaba.
No, Bayt
al-Ma'mur. So remember we mentioned Bayt al-Ma'mur before? We said it's a house that, did we mention, you guys were not here? Somebody say no. So we mentioned that 70,000, it was indicating of how many angels there are. The Prophet said that there is 70,000 angels every day that go in and they worship Allah and then they leave, never come back again. You remember that? So this is Bayt al-Ma'mur. Now, Sister Huda had mentioned that it's the place of you mentioned something about it. And I said we'll talk about that later. I remember you said that I'll just pick for now, we'll talk about it later. Because we're going to talk about it now. But I can't remember what you said. Alright, so but anyway, but it is a house, and it's mentioned that it's directly above the Kaaba. However, there is an opinion that every sky has a Bayt al-Ma'mur, and the one that is in the heaven, the earthly heaven, is called Bayt al-Izzah. Okay, it's called Bayt al-Izzah. That's Ibn Kathir's opinion. And the Bayt al-Izzah is right directly above the Kaaba. If it falls, it will collapse on the Kaaba. But it's kind of interesting is that the Prophet ﷺ, when he went on his journey of the Isra, do you remember how he saw it? Do you guys know how he saw Ibrahim alayhi salam? He was leading towards the Bayt al-Ma'mur. He was leading towards the Bayt al-Ma'mur. And so some of the scholars, it said it's befitting of that because he was the builder of the Kaaba in this world. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him in between the Barzakh or the hereafter that he is leaning towards one of the the Kaabas of the angels. Okay. So it's almost like a kind of a I don't know what they call it in Arabic, nukta, whatever they call it. But anyway, so they worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they do tawaf around this house, they enter this house and they worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by the way, the fact that the Bayt al-Ma'mur was on top of the Kaaba is mentioned by Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now, they also, out of the form of worship is also their fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now I mentioned in the Arabic word there is khawf and then there is khashya. Is there a difference between khawf and khashya? Sometimes they're used interchangeably, by the way. Sometimes they're used interchangeably. At least khawf is used as khawf and as khashya. But khashya sometimes is just used as something more specific. Is there a difference? Well, obviously I'm telling you it's specific, so there is a difference. But what is the difference?
Khashya, it's the fear from love.
It's fear from?
Love.
Out of love.
Yeah.
No.
It's a greater level of the fear. It's more than.
How? Why?
Out of authority as well. Like
Out of what?
مهابة like الهيبة.
Fear of disappointing somebody.
الخوف it could be from something small.
Okay, you're getting close.
الخوف
خوف could be
it could be
something
from
small.
anything or something small.
Like a lion
some
or a
others
dinosaur.
not,
Come on,
yes.
So I think a lion is something big. Come on. Okay. I'm sorry. But actually, a lion can be khashya too, by the way. But there's a slight difference. Khashya has to do fear out of knowledge. Fear because of the knowledge you have. Okay. I'm not afraid of a cat, but I'm afraid of a lion. Because I know what a lion can do. Okay? Fear, khawf in the Arabic term, can be because of something of unknown. So when a person is sitting in the dark and they're afraid, what are they afraid of? Unknown, okay? If they're afraid to make a choice, why are they afraid? Of the consequences. They don't know the consequences. They're afraid of the unknown. Khashya is fear out of knowledge. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when he describes the angels, وَهُمْ مِنْ خَشْيَتِهِ مُشْفِقُونَ, it's the fear of the angels because of their knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is that understood? This is why, that's true. That's a verse in the Quran that those who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the most from his servants are the ulama, the scholars. Why? Because they are the most knowledgeable of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's a beautiful form of worship. You can usually never attain completely or the highest level unless you really have knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowledge of this religion, a lot of these other things. So it's a beautiful form of worship that you should not attain to the highest of level except with knowledge. Yes, the average person can have khashya, because if you truly understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you think of your position in front of Him, you're standing in front of Him, the basic acts of beliefs will produce khashya. It's not that it's not. But the higher level is usually for the people who have more knowledge. And it's kind of interesting, so I'm just going to give you, I'm going to sprinkle this with some of the indications of how the khashya of the angels are. So the Prophet ﷺ was talking about, and this is from Nawas ibn Sam'an, and it's narrated by Khuzaymah al-Tabarani and Abi Hatim. But the Prophet ﷺ was describing how the angels react when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of wahy, when there's something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders, when an order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes, whether it's some sort of revelation, an order of the angel to do something, this is called wahy. How do they react? So, how do they react? Do you guys know? They what? I know they obey, that's the end result. They run, they hasten, no, but that's the end result. There's a bit of something that happens. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks initially with the order, okay, the Prophet ﷺ described the heavens, the heavens shake. And then the angels, they collapse. Out of fear of Allah, they collapse in prostration. And the first one to raise his head from the angels is Jibreel alayhi salam. Okay, he's the first one. And he receives the order, and then as he's going down, the other angels are saying, مَاذَا قَالَ رَبُّكُمْ? Right, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala order? And he would say, قَالَ رَبُّكُمْ al-haq. He said the truth, because everything that Allah says is the truth. But it's just a description when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks, this is how they react. From the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they completely collapse in prostration. Alright. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is their relationship with humans.
Yes, this is what I asked for. I asked about the Sahabi who had salam from the angels all the time.
Okay.
And I said, there is a Sahabi also being غسلوا الملائكة حنظلة.
Yes, Handala.
So I wanted
غسيل
to know.
الملائكة.
Yeah. So
That one I know about. But the other one I don't know about, to be honest. So if you know anything about it, maybe later. I'm talking about the next. Okay, but okay, so I'm going to start about the relationship with human beings. By the way, our relationship with the angels is very extensive. We're always there is a relationship that's going on, starting from Adam alayhi salam to the offsprings of Adam. So I'm going to start with Adam, the relationship with Adam alayhi salam. Okay. So what was so the first kind of interesting? The first interaction they had with Adam alayhi salam before was he was created. Is that right? Curiosity, right? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed the angels, He said, إِنِّي جَعَلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. So how did they receive that order? Excellent, translate.
how can you?
You guys know Surah Al-Baqarah, right? This is Surah Al-Baqarah. Right? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنِّي جَعَلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً, I'm gonna create a...
Khalifa.
Okay, here's a good question. I don't know why I'm coming up with this. What does Khalifa mean?
Vice President,
A what?
the one who represents.
Who represents Allah? Does Allah need representation?
But
This is one of the opinions, right? But the more obvious correct opinion, Khalifa, which means يخلف بعضهم بعضا, which means one comes after the other, right? Right? يخلف بعضهم بعضا. إن جعلنا في الأرض خليفة, a creation that will come reproduce, come one after the other, right? يخلف بعضهم بعضا. So they asked, أتجعل في الأرض خليفة? You create something like this in the earth, who's a khalifa. تجعل في الأرض خليفة ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك. لا تجعل في الأرض خليفة. إن جعل في الأرض أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك. The question is, would you create somebody that would ruin the earth and spill the blood? And we, what do we do? Praise you, نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك, right? We do tasbih and tahmeed and we glorify you. Okay? We say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all these things. So, remember when I said that the angels don't object? Is this an objection?
No.
Question.
Or isn't it a question?
No.
Question is the same as objection?
To know the answer.
So, okay, so for example, if I say, Faris, do something, and you say, why?
no, this is not.
Is that an objection or a question?
No, this is ta'ajjub.
Ta'ajjub.
Yes, baby.
I like that word.
The
You still haven't answered me. If I tell you to do something and say why, is that an objection or a question? It's an objection.
there are different purposes of.
So every time you say something and says why, it's an objection, okay? Felix, did I just get you in trouble? So I told your parents, like, no. Anytime you say why, it's an objection, okay? Doesn't necessarily mean an objection?
No, it's a question to know the
It can
answer.
be inquisitive,
Yes.
right? Curiosity, inquisitive. Because before the humans, there were the jinn. Okay. And they were on the earth. The angels might have seen what happened. And so they're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala behind maybe the wisdom. Right? They're not objecting. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, I'm going to do it, because He's going to do it. So it wasn't a form of an objection. You have to understand this. It's a form of inquiry, asking the wisdom behind it. What's the wisdom? They're curious. And so subhanahu wa ta'ala answered, He said, إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. I know what you do not know. Alright. Now, one of the other first relationships with Adam is that they prostrated to Adam. Okay. Now this prostration, is this a prostration of worship? Is this a prostration of worship?
No.
Sorry?
No.
It was what? Respect. Good. It's a prostration of respect. Now this was an expression of respect. And in fact, it was practiced even by some of the messengers and prophets. The obvious one in the Quran is how the parents and the brothers of Yusuf treated Yusuf when they went back to him and saw him. وَخَرُّوا لَهُ سُجَّدًا قَالَ يَا أَبَتِ هَذَا تَأْوِيلُ الرُّؤْيَا قَدْ جَعَلَهَا رَبِّي حَقًّا. That this is the fulfillment of my dream. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had fulfilled it. When they came back to Yusuf alayhi salam, the father and mother of Yusuf and the brothers all did sujood to Yusuf alayhi salam. Now, if this was a form of shirk or considered a form of worship, then this is not befitting, but it's a form of respect. However, that being said, in our religion, this is an impermissible form of respect. Okay? It's an impermissible form of respect. Is that clear?
Yes.
Good. I'm mentioning this because sometimes kids that play martial arts, okay? Kids that play martial arts, what do? They bow down. But in reality, actually, in Japan, they do more than that. Yeah, they're actually on the ground when they greet the sensei when he comes in, the big sensei, the huge one, the big boss. Right? What do? They're sitting on the ground. Right? Also, when you do the chant position, they go down even further to the ground. Okay? So if any of the kids does that, you tell them not to do it, that doesn't mean he's or she's a disbeliever. Okay? They're not out of the realm of Islam because it can have a misconception, some sort of interpretation. It's not necessarily a form of worship. They think of it with some respect. But as Muslims, we're not supposed to be doing that. In our Sharia, this is something that is not done. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ had clearly mentioned this. Right? He said that in several hadith. But anyway.
Allah
Yes.
subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned وَفَدْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ, so it's the expression of the honor and the respect for the parents and for the believers and the right.
So this is an expression of being lenient towards them, right? With merciful towards them, but it has nothing to do with prostration. All right. Now the relationship with Adam alayhi salam in the beginning also was that they also kind of almost taught Adam a few things or directed him. No, that's Allah that taught Adam. But, for example, they taught Adam how to do salam. For example, so when Adam was created, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had said, إِذْهَبْ فَسَلِمْ عَلَى هُؤُلَاءِ. Nothing. So he told Adam, go and greet these people. And so when he went and greeted them, they responded back and they said, وَعَلَيْكُمُ السَّلَامُ وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ وَبَرَكَاتُهُ. فَزَادُوهُ وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ وَبَرَكَاتُهُ. So he said, Assalamu alaikum. So they taught Adam how to respond properly in greeting and salam. Okay, so there's a few things over here. Now, the relationship with some of the angels with Adam also is that it was the angels themselves that had washed Adam alayhi salam when he had died. They're the ones that washed him and shrouded Adam alayhi salam. Because this was the first natural death in earth. The first natural death was the death of Adam. I purposely said natural. Why did I say natural?
Because his son was killed.
Good. So what happened here? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent 2 crows because they didn't know what to do. What are we going to do with this dead body? I don't know what to do with it. So the crows taught the brother that had killed how to dig in the ground and put the body. But this is not washing and shrouding. The angels came down after the death of Adam alayhi salam. And so the Prophet said, لما توفي آدم غسلته الملائكة بالماء وترا. Right? That the angels had washed Adam alayhi salam witra, which means in odd numbers. So the least of odd numbers is how many?
3, 5.
What? No one?
Yeah,
No one? Actually, I have a sound on that. In the Arabic language, the least of the odds is 3.
In the English?
No, in Arabic. أقل الوتر 3, right? In Arabic, witr is 3. The least of it is 3. So you guys were right, but I just kind of... I played the English version of it. And it's very odd that English is 1, 3, and above. But the least of it is, in Arabic language, is 3. This is why, even when we talk about praying witr, the complete form of witr, the least complete form is how much? 3. It's okay if you do 1 only.
Yeah.
It's okay. But the least of complete is 3. Alright, so the Prophet said, لما توفي آدم غسلته الملائكة وترا وألحدوا له وقالوا هذه سنة آدم وولده. So they also in the grave, when they built it, they did lahd, which means you dig in and then you dig in the side of the grave, almost like a little kind of, like a little what? Pocket, I guess. Right? And then you put it in there and you kind of put something behind the deceased, and then you just put the soil down. And so they actually did this. And so this is one of the interactions with Adam alayhi salam. So they're the ones that took care of Adam alayhi salam and showed his offsprings how to deal with the deceased. They said this is the sunnah afterwards of doing that. Now there is another, subhanAllah, we just mentioned since we're talking about angels washing, there is a sahabi that the angels had washed, which is Handala. And this was in the battle of, the shaheed, he was in the battle of Uhud, if I remember correctly. And the reasons that the angels have washed him, you guys know why the angels washed him?
Yes.
Because
Why?
He was recently married.
He was recently married, and he was on janaba. So it was almost like the next morning, when he heard the call to the fight, he just kind of left his wife and then he went out, just to show how obedient he is to the Prophet ﷺ. And so he actually went even to the battlefield, he was just in a state of janaba. And you can imagine the dedication that the companions had. And as a reward for that, for his sincerity, the ones who actually washed him were the angels themselves. Okay, they're the ones that were washing Handala.
Amran ibn Hasim.
Now,
Amran ibn Hasim is the name.
Imran ibn Husayn. He's the one that his hands are reshaken?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, that's interesting. Alright, now what about the relation of the other, human beings? Now, once again, there's a constant relationship between us from the beginning of our wombs, we begin our existence in the wombs of our mothers all the way until we enter Jannah even. Okay, there's a constant relationship. there's a really tight, very relationship, and it's very good to know this for several reasons, right? One is that we should always be conscious that there's
Angels around us.
watching us. Okay. Sorry? And writing. Of course, before that, we should always be aware that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always watching us. Okay? Now, one of the first relationships, obviously, with us as humans is that they are actually involved in our transition as a unicell from in the wombs of our mothers and the different changes that we go through until we come out as infants. So they actually have a role in that. There are several hadith, but I'm going to mention one of them only, and this is mentioned in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. And the Prophet ﷺ said, this is narrated by Anas ibn Malik, the Prophet ﷺ said, وَكَّلَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى بِرَحِمِ مَلِكٍ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given the duty, there's wakkala, which means he gave him the what is it?
The authority.
No, not authority.
Responsibility.
Responsibility. The responsibility of a womb to an angel. So each of our mothers, there's an angel associated with that womb. And what he does is, he would ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he would say, Ay Rabbi nutfa, he's taking permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Should we allow the nutfa, which is just the droplet? And then he would ask, Ay Rabbi alaqa, should we allow it to continue to form the formation of the alaqa, which is a clinging piece of like a blood clot. Okay? Ay Rabbi mudgha, should we continue and have the morsel of flesh? Mudgha, which is a morsel of flesh. فإذا أراد أن يقضي خلقها, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to have it as a living organism, or its complete creation or formation, the angel would ask, أي ربي ذكر أم أنثى, male or female, so they can continue the creation process. And then it goes even beyond that, things that are associated with outside, things that the angel writes. And then he would ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أشقي أم سعيد, happy or miserable in this world and the hereafter. And then he would ask, فَمَا الرِّزْقِ, and what is the sustenance, so they can write it down. And so they can write all these down. And then he would ask, فَمَا الْأَجَلِ, his lifespan. And then he would write all that in the book. Is that right? And so this is one of the beginning of relationship of the humans with the angels. From the beginning, they're involved with us. They're around us from one way or another. Now, the other way they are involved with humans is that they are protectors of the humans. Okay? Is that clear?
Yes.
We're going to get to how many angels are with us constantly. There's a lot of angels around us, but constantly, all the time.
One front and one behind.
One right and the left, okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لَهُ مُعَقِّبَاتٌ مِّن بَيْنِ يَدَيْهِ وَمِن خَلْفِهِ. So مِن بَيْنِ يَدَيْهِ means in front. مُعَقِّبَاتٌ مِّن خَلْفِهِ means behind. What happened to the left and right? So then it's how many? 4. Okay. The other one, Amin Shman, is what? Those are the kataba. وَمَا يَلْفُظْ مِنْ قَوْلٍ إِلَّا لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ. So معقبات over here من بين يديه ومن خلفه يحفظونه من أمر الله. They protect him from the order of Allah. Wait a second. So Allah orders something, and these angels are protecting us from the order of Allah. Does that make sense?
No, they make dua.
No. They protect us.
Wait a second. We have to understand this verse. Who's sitting there? Hamza.
Yeah.
Explain this to me. We said that the angels do not object to the orders of Allah. Is that right? Yes? Do they object to the orders of Allah?
No.
Malaika, they don't object, huh? They obey. Yet we have these angels that protect us from the order of Allah. Is that the opposite of what we're saying? Okay, if Allah orders, for example, this tree is going to fall on you, are they protecting you from the order of Allah?
They move at that time. If that's in our other, then at that time
If it's
they
not
move.
the
But other than, they
That is, okay, that's true. يَحْفَظُونَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِ اللَّهِ بِأَمْرِ اللَّهِ. Right? They protect you from the order of Allah by the order of Allah. That's what it means. When something's going to befall you, they khalas, that's befall you. But I do have to say, some of the scholars have the opinion that it's only one angel that's protecting you from front and the back. But people like Ibn Kathir, for example, he mentions that it is actually 2 angels protecting from the front and from the behind. And then there's two other angels, one on the right, one on the left. So you constantly have how many? Four. Okay. Now the ones that protect you, what are they protecting you from? Any what? Any harm. Any harm you can think of. Okay. A lot of the tafsir they mentioned like harm from the jinn, for example. Affliction from the jinn, they would protect you from it. From things that are, for example, hurtful, such as poisonous, whether they're snakes or whatever the case is, that sometimes pass by you and for some odd reason they just leave you, they don't bother you. Sometimes we see this kind of, like a person is just sitting there and all of a sudden this thing is beside them and they're not doing anything. They're kind of just sitting there and they move away. Okay, so all this is from the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Abdullah ibn Abbas had mentioned this. He said, "Al-mu'aqibat min Allah wal malaika." So Ibn Abbas said, that the mu'aqibat is the angels that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made to protect the human from the front and from the back. Until the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes, and then what happens? It befalls them. Okay.
So they are ordered to just move away? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Brother, is
Yes. You forgot the question?
Is there a situation where angel go away from you? Like if you're a bad person or a sinner, an angel
They'll just leave you?
not protect you.
So they leave their post?
I'm wondering.
So you have to realize that these angels do not do anything unless they are ordered. They don't initiate except with an order, and they do not stop except with a order.
So
Yes.
the zikr and the Quran, these things that love to the spirituality of the human being, we call it nowadays the positive energy, الطاقة الإيجابية.
Okay.
So is this like more angels or more protection or
More angels, more protection. So more angels you have, the more protection you have, yes, probably.
right?
A place that has angels most likely has less sin, good. Less shayateen. There's more of a higher iman. So it's more beneficial for us.
Don't they leave you when you're going in a bathroom or?
Does it really matter?
No.
I'm just asking, does it matter?
Yeah.
They're not going to be looking at you.
No, but shaitan can come and.
Yeah, shaitan can come. That's fine, but because he's just shaitan. But this is why you don't do dua when you enter. Right? So they're still there protecting us.
This for angel, is this for the believer and the disbeliever?
The believer and the disbeliever, yes.
إن كل نفس لما عليها حافظ.
Yes.
So, but even the mu'tabat, like
Yes.
the one who protects.
So even the disbelievers.
Okay.
Believers and disbelievers, they're with him all the time. Alright, I think we're going to stop here because I think we went beyond an hour. And we'll continue. So, to be honest, this is the largest section. The relationship of angels with the human. And we might even elaborate even sometimes specific relations, for example, like between Jibreel and the Prophet. Alright? So just remind me next time we're going to talk about the interaction that has to do with delivering wahy. Okay? So this is where we're going to start. No, not next week. The week afterwards, inshallah. Because next week there's one. Okay? Also,
the Sahabi Osman